introducing myself for the first time. Well, I just did that. No, I don't have to do that. Let me stop the transcription because I get to see everything I say and it's weird. It keeps, uh, so I get that part is stopped and then the recording is on. Yeah, so we'll go around and introduce ourselves. If you wouldn't mind introducing, your name, your agency, what area of work you do, either response or stabilization, both, or peer support, and um, just one thing you're looking forward to this summer. And then, yep. So Asada here, Hennepin County. Um, One thing I'm looking forward to this summer is you guys all know I moved from Columbus, Ohio. I went back to Ohio in 2022, and then I didn't go yet last year. So I'm looking forward to going back to Ohio for 2 weeks and just catching up with old friends and family. And I will pass it over to Ashley.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Ashley. I am with Nexus Family Response. I'm a lead responder. This summer, I am just really looking forward to the nice weather and being out on the lakes. I'll pass it over to Allison.
Good morning. My name is Allison. I'm with Nexus Family Response, family responder and parent peer, and just looking forward to the warm weather and no snow. I will pass it over to Brenda.
I'm Brenda. I'm a family responder with Nexus, obviously, and I'm looking forward to going camping in the summer and going kayaking. I'll pass it to Coco.
Hi, I'm Coco. I'm also a family responder with Nexus. I'm looking forward to the weather and just being outside and playing tennis and doing activities. Yeah, I will pass it to Goldina.
Hi everyone, I'm Goldina. I'm from Summit Guidance. Sorry, I'm a little blanked out. I work with the stabilization team there, and then for the summer, I am looking forward to just the warm weather. I will pass it on to Samira.
Thank you, Goldina. Good morning, everyone. Good to see familiar faces and new faces. I'm Samira. I'm with Summit. Mostly I do supervisory role, and I sometimes see families as well on the stabilization side. I'm looking forward to my sister's having a baby, so we're gonna have a new one. I'm looking forward for that. Afrah, you next.
Yes, my name is Afra, and I'm with Summit Guidance, and I'm part of the family stabilization team. And one thing I'm looking forward to, probably just being able to take long walks in the nice weather. And I'll pass it over to Jackson.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Jackson. I'm a family responder here with Nexus. And I guess something my team knows, but maybe the rest of the people don't, is I'm looking forward to starting medical school in July. I'm going to pass it on to Casey.
Hey, thanks so much. Oh, the mute was gone. Okay, thanks so much. I'm Casey. I'm the supervisor for family stabilization here at Change Inc. And I am looking forward to spending the entire month of August with my grandma because every summer I go to Chicago for the whole month and I spend it with my grandma. So I'm super, super, super looking forward to watching Yellowstone and eating salads from her garden and going on little power walks and living my best life, napping twice a day. Just straight on granny time. But I'm gonna pass it to Jennifer.
Hi, my name is Jennifer. I am a care coordinator at Change Inc. And I'm looking forward to moving. We just purchased a house, so the next few weeks we're gonna be moving and remodeling our house. Thank you. And I'm sorry I got here late, but has Kayla gone?
Nope, I can go. Thank you. I'm Kayla Rennie. I'm the program manager for family response and stabilization. I oversee response and stabilization with Nexus. I'm looking forward to just family time with my kids and my partner. We have committed to doing a family golf night once a week. So we're looking forward to that. And I will pass that over to, I can't see who else is on the call as I'm driving. So Assad, I'll let you choose somebody for me.
I will go with Allison. Did you go?
Yep,
Okay.
I went already.
All right. Ahmed. Ahmed, I know you're lighting up, but I can't hear him. Can you guys hear him too? No. Okay. Fatima.
Hi, so I'm Fatima and I'm with the stabilization part with Summit. Sorry, my camera isn't working. One thing that I'm looking forward for this summer is better weather, I think. So yeah.
Yes. Ahmed, are you back on? You were trying to say something, but we couldn't hear you. So you're having some audio issue.
Yes, I was able to figure out.
Right.
So my name is Amer Hassan. I am the program director at Summit Guidance.
Did I miss anybody? Did everybody go? All right. Just want to make sure. Thank you, everybody. So the reason why, well, again, as I was going to my spiel earlier, the reason why I'm really excited about this program, and when I say excited about, I am your biggest cheerleader. Like any day I talk to, on Friday I have C4K, a program in the county that heard about FRSS. On a daily basis, I'm getting calls from somebody who hears about this service model and goes, I really want to partner with you. What would it take for us to know of your service and be a referral source? Because we have families. And it's not, people are saying like, yeah, at some point, people are like, we know families are needing this service today, now. One thing we're also excited about is because, as I mentioned before, this is a service that really goes from symptom-based crisis need to needs-based crisis response. And that shift is really completely intentional, because when you say symptom level, somebody has to come identify there's a symptom that reaches a level or a threshold in order for somebody to get support. Two, needs based of, you said you need that, Coco. Yeah, we'll send somebody out. You said you need that, Afra. We will send somebody in. So basically, you are the determinant of whether you get the support or not. That itself, either people are really finding like, wow, that's exciting, or people can't believe because we're doing something so radically different. And to me, this is something that has gone for years in Ohio that I'm accustomed to. So when I hear people either super excited about, or people are like, are you sure you guys are gonna pay for that? Like they're excited, but they're going about why it might not succeed. I know it's gonna succeed because we have wonderful people like you that are doing the work. And we have every step in place to make this a sustainable service beyond the next 4 years. So we're on a good space. today's training would center, and I'll put my PPT, my presentations up. The reason why the service is so different is because of the two components of the program. I know Denise and Paulette have done a really fine job in kind of installing, no worries, Katie, installing some concept of the response phase. What are some of those crises? What happens? How do you engage? What are some neurodevelopmental, uh, level, molecular level, changes that happen at a stress level, trauma experiences. What I wanted today focus more on is some of the processes. Because what I've heard before is that people have said, like, wonderful, I know the concept, I understand the foundational pieces, but those critical process level stage or outline or timelines are really off, especially when you consider we have three agencies working in synchrony. So that the families you work with actually are moving along to Samira and Casey's teams and care coordinators and civilization providers. So that what does that look like? So that we all understand and have a similar uniform understanding concept of what is really happening there. So today, my focus is more on what does that process look like? And when you're working with families, I know, what does that really mean? Like, are you working singularly with the youth and family, or are you more of, and I don't want to say the quarterback of that relationship, not with the families and the youth, but as you get to know them, most times you would find out families are connected at system level, many connection points, but the families get lost in, like, I work with so and so, but I don't really know what they do. But I also work with a school social worker, and I don't know what they're doing for my child. My child might have a probation officer or not have, and I don't know what. So families oftentimes they get the phone call and they go, yeah, yeah, I know you're working with. So when I say the quarterback, it's almost as if a mini rap. You're identifying those connection points, and with the family's consent, you're saying, yeah, let me just check in with the school social worker and see maybe they're doing some things that I don't want to duplicate. Like, I want to focus something on you, something that you're not receiving, so that the school social worker and I are just accessing the same resources and offering the same support to your child. So my goal today is focus more on processes and the redefinition or redefining of what the stabilization work is. So let me put this up, focusing on the processes. And please feel free, because some of the things that I'm adding into this conversation today are some things that came out of conversations of somebody saying, yeah, that does not really align with the policies now, because this field is something, how do you address that? And we go, yeah, we never really thought of that before. Let's make sure that we include that into our training. So the first one is the referral documentation. We all know families, when they come to the response, somebody has a really short window to work with the family, up to 72 hours. As they get to know the family and identify a family as a potential a need for additional stabilization work, they're making that referral quickly in the hopes that within those 72 hours, the family moves on. So it's time sensitive. And sometimes when that process is not clearly defined or tuned, people can attribute some of the challenges to different personalities, different agencies. And I would really like for all of us to know we're all working together to benefit the family's needs. And if we can center the family and youth, then anything that happens, we can overcome those challenges. And we can just understand it from a process level rather than personality or philosophical change differences. So when a family comes in, Coco is working with the family and says, yep, I'm gonna make the referral. The email to stabilization providers sometimes might be missing and I'm not saying I just realized I used Coco's name and I'm just like saying negative things. I don't mean it, Coco. I'm not personally saying, but I'm saying in sometimes all of us we make mistakes. When we include those documentations, we want to make sure these are all included into the, because sometimes a person gets and then they go, yeah, I don't have that. That communication goes back and forth, recognizing that sometimes our work schedule is different. So if Ashley sends me something or Jackson sends me something, now he might be off the next 3 days. His next, schedule might be on Saturday. So if I'm trying to figure something out and that family was told I was going to meet, so it creates all these issues, logistical issues. So just confirm before we send anything. Does the case note include the action plan, the care plan, the crisis assessment tool, and the recommendations from that, the family's preferred times and dates, and the referral form? All of that goes in. I've seen situations where an email has gone out, included everything except the preferred times, and then the agency that received that information said maybe they wanted me to connect with family, and I will call the family and confirm a preferred times and date. While that person is trying to connect with family, maybe I realized, hey, I didn't include the family. Now I'm calling the family, and the family goes, I just talked to somebody about the time. Why you creates this confusion of like we're not even working together. So before you send that referral to stabilization, make sure that it has all those information included, those documentations. Another way to make sure that if you are the only person on that email chain and you send it to Andre or Casey, and now, as I mentioned before, our schedules are different, and then they're trying to get back to you, and you're off for the next 4 days. Now that it creates this difficult. I responded to 80. What's going on? She hasn't responded. So I was just waiting on her to respond and offer that. And then the family, something goes wrong. So before you send, you have attached all your information there, making sure that the evaluation team, Cheryl and Lisa, are included. Your supervisor, in case that needs to come back and some issue happens that somebody needs to, address. I was CC'd on. I would continue to be CC'd on, but at some point I would like to kind of move away from that area as well. And then you're sending it to the stabilization program supervisor because they would know who in their team would work with that family. So you're including your program supervisor, you're including the other program supervisor from the agency, myself, and evaluation team. The reason why we're including evaluation team, and that came up before, is because we really want to make sure they are tracking to all the processes, all the referrals going from one area to another. Because in our model, we said we want the family to get stabilization services started within the first 3 days. Because if a family is in response, they just had a crisis, and then the next time we're scheduling a meeting for stabilization is 1 week or 2 weeks from now, there might be like a higher likelihood that that family in that interim might need another response call. So we want to make sure the connection points or the interval is really short. So they're helping us track, are we really meeting the fidelity to the model? So by having them there, not only can they see, oh yeah, somebody so-and-so was referred from response, Assad was referred from response to stabilization. They put that on where they track. What they're hoping for is to get the NOMS pre-intervention done. What they're hoping for is the consent. The consent is not for services. The consent for services has already been agreed at the response phase. The consent that at the conclusion of the service, somebody, a community interviewer, can connect with them and see how services were so that we can also identify and support the quality of our service. So evaluation is really critical that they are CC'd on that process. Does anybody have any questions of what I said? That documentations have to be in along with who needs to be on the email chain. Any questions, any curiosities, any comments?
I would just like to add, I know that it's a process that we're continuing to always look at and do. There is those time frames that we may be looking at making adjustments to process evolves, and as we do that, we will always communicate that out to the rest of the teams so everybody understands that process as well.
Yep, and absolutely. And the reason why this is really different and why when we were starting this program, there was a lot of precedence in starting something like this in the county, right? COPE was in the county. A lot of other PSAB is in the county. All these other things where you're doing, you hire staff within and you say, yeah, because we can all, are in the same organization. So it's a lot easier to kind of have the training, the logistics, all uniformity. But the reason why we wanted this is because it's critical that the work is done at the community level by community agencies that really have the expertise, technical and clinical and non-clinical expertise to be able to be successfully deliver this work. With that, the challenge is that logistical piece. We don't have an EHR, so we're working creating a manual process that really makes sense for us. In New Jersey and places like that, when we told them we were starting mobile response and stabilization, and we were doing this through contracts with organizations, they were like, "What? Are you serious? Like you're gonna do that now, even from the beginning?" And then we said, if we do something like this and start it in the county, it will be really difficult to at some point transition that out into community. It would be best for us if we start there, knowing that there would be challenges that will come along and we would all learn together. So with that, I'm saying this is an evolution of services. This is an evolving process. While we learn from the technical expertise of people who have done it in other locations, we would never be able to kind of import and apply it here without having our own nuanced way of, identifying our structure, our needs in our own community, and kind of adapting to that. As Kayla mentioned, some things can change and will change. But at this moment, it would be very important and essential for all of us to kind of recognize, yep, before I send, let me make sure I have all my documentation. Before I send, let me make sure that I have the right people in this email chain. And then off it goes. Once it goes, now it's in the inbox of the program supervisors, right? The program supervisors now are looking at this email and saying, yep, let me make sure that before I assign it to anybody, I have all the documentations that are needed in this email chain so that before I send it to Karina or Jennifer or Katie, that I know everything they need is already here. The second one, I want you to kind of also keep an eye on, is everybody included that needed to be included? Just to kind of keep us all in this, the same alignment. The reason why this email needs a response is a twofold. One is the families that are in response were already told, yes, we're making a referral for you to get an additional 8 weeks. That we really want in all, we really want at best to be within 3 days of as they transition out. They already are meeting with somebody within those first 3 days, ideally. We recognize some families might not have the capacity, nor, sometimes we might not have the capacity guaranteed. The second one is the families at that time are agreeing to that, yes, with the response, yes, I'm available at these 2 appointments that I have window. The sooner we can confirm with the family, yes, you said you were able to meet on Thursday at 8. Yes, Samira is able to meet with you that time. Somebody is, so we can just confirm that. The more we just wait, the family go, yeah, but I gave them a time and I'm not sure, maybe my priorities could change. Now, if it's too long, we get back to the family, yeah, that doesn't work for me anymore. Oh, okay, what works for you? Now I want it this time. It could really be on this back and forth email convoluted circuitous conversation that is not efficient. So once that email comes to the stabilization program supervisors, they're really responding to this email within a 2-hour frame so that the responders can confirm with the families. And then that should be the end of until now you're able to connect. You are, talking to your staff and assigning that to stabilization care coordinator. The 2-hour, let's say right now it's 8:35. An email comes now at 9 and then says this is a referral for Assad to receive a stabilization. We really want that to a response by 11. Yep, confirmed. The only exception is because different agencies work at different times. If somebody receives a referral before, I'll take that back, after 2 p.m. today. Let's say I got a referral at 2:40 or 2:15. I might only work until 3 today. So I don't have 2-hour window to respond. And it would be almost as if a little burden on me to do this in 45 minutes because I got this at 2:15 or 2:45, and then I only have 15 minutes or 45 minutes. So we said, if an email comes after 2 p.m., we want the response to be the next morning before 11 a.m. Some people might start their work at 8, some might start at 9. So just to give that flexibility, 9 to 11, we want that response, we want that email response to be within those 2 hours the next day. Does that make sense to everybody, or is there anybody who has a question or a comment on that specific piece? That 2 hour, yes, if it's before 2 p.m. Also, to kind of mirror that, if it's 2 p.m., after 2 p.m., we want that response before 11 a.m. the next day. The only exceptions there is if it's on a Friday. Let's say on a Friday, you get an email at 2 p.m., 2:15. You don't work Saturday or Sunday. So I will not expect you to wake up Saturday morning, go on your computer and respond to that, knowing that this is your day off, and we respect that. So the only exception is if it's on a Friday, that needs to be on a Monday response. So we're making all these exceptions or these just so that we can kind of fit a broader policy around of when, how, and what are some exceptions to that rule. Any questions to that statement? All right.
Katie, I see you have your hand up.
Oh, and that's the problem. I can't see when I have my screen up, so I will come back off my high horse. I mean, my screen. Go ahead, Katie. You have your hand up.
Sorry, so it was just a quick question. So I totally understand the by two, that was pretty standard from I think even December of last year, November when that email was sent out. I was wondering, so like what if during the summer hours do we just communicate like because more of my families tend to want to meet earlier during the day. So like if I'm doing like 10 to 2 out in the field, can I just respond later when I get a chance? I'll do my best because I understand it's only like a 2-second reply to the email. However, like, is there more leeway in the summer? Because sometimes I do have clients like back to back, and I try not to. I try to do like half days, but sometimes holidays interfere, etc.
Absolutely, that's a good question. So, and that's the one thing where we're trying to identify what does is it a calendar, sharing a shared calendar space that we have. Let's say, Katie, you're not CC'd in that email, right? That email is Kayla, and then Kayla looks at that and says, "Yep, I know Katie is off on these days, and she's already out today. She's meeting with the families, and this is her schedule." So looking at your schedule of your work schedule and going, yeah, she has somebody at 10 to 2 today, but she's open tomorrow at 2 to 4. So does your organization have a shared calendar so that you're not out in the, meeting families and looking at over your email and going, yeah, I really need to respond to that email. This is all more for the supervisors to kind of have a shared calendar of who's working at this time, who's available, especially if it's more than one individual, right? Katie, I sympathize. You're the only person you were the only person who was doing. So all of the families that are coming to stabilization with Nexus, you were the only person. So then the question to me, to the organization and supervisors, how do you track your staff's, and when I say track, it sounds really wrong. How do you manage, let's just soften that up. How do you manage your team's shared calendar so that if you are getting an email that has really a 2-hour window, a timeline, that you're assigning that to an individual or accepting and not creating duplication or conflict with your staff? Do you track their availabilities, who they're working? Is there a shared calendar that you have with your team? That's a good
So
question, Katie. I appreciate
Sorry,
it.
it like cut out
Go
for a second. I
ahead.
apologize.
Yeah, internally we do that. So I think it's easier internally. It's the kind of more so the external stabilization referrals. I would see it being more difficult with that shared calendar unless we did a universal shared calendar. But internally, I'm able to see Katie's full details, so that would work. If it would work, with other agencies, also being able to accept a referral perhaps and put it in a time slot that would be available. I could see that working as well.
And then to Samira and Casey, within your organization, do you have that shared calendar where I have one with my own boss, right? So she could go in, so she's like, I schedule a meeting for you with so and so because I see on your schedule that you had this window and we wanted to meet with this organization. Oftentimes it's like there is ever no conflict. She sees my opening window, and I always update anything that happens, any personal, appointments, all that. I update it so that if she schedules something, I don't ever go, yeah, I needed to see a dentist at that time. Things can change, right? These are not, set in stone. But I just wanted to see how, if you're getting an email with a 2-hour window, how do you have your staff, and do they update their calendar, shared calendar, so that you can assign without fearing that it might create a conflict?
So I have a small team. We are very close. So that helps. Two, we do in our supervision, we do check who has availability for this week. So we keep our availability within the week itself. So I will know Afra I can take 3 families. Maybe Fatima can take 2, Goldina can take 1, and I'll be the backup. So in case we have 5, we know where they go to whom. And the good thing about it, all the emails come to me, so I will be able to respond within the 2 hours, and I'll be able to know who's taking it because we already schedule weekly who's taking how many, and I'll keep track of that.
Yep. Perfect. Casey?
Can you please say that again? My phone cut out.
Yes. So as we have a short window of time when an email comes in within a 2-hour confirmation, that reply, how do you have a shared calendar with your staff so that as you accepted those referrals and are assigning, that your staff have the availability to meet the family within that time frame?
No, I don't. So I think the shared calendar idea definitely is efficient and works for some people, but it just doesn't really work for um how we're doing it over at our agency. But everybody's pretty communicative. So we do have a like a shared messenger kind of board where if I'm assigning a case to somebody, I usually just kind of like post in there like, I'll say, "Oh, Jennifer, I got a person this time and this time. When are you available?" And if they're not seeing a person at that moment, then they'll usually get back to me
Hmm.
relatively kind of instantly.
Okay. So I shared, like, I don't want to say, I don't want to call it a chat, but a shared, like, real time.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
it's kind of check. Yeah.
All right.
I mean, I do think the shared calendar does work for some people, but the staff is seeing so many families and youth, and then they also have other things going on, and there's a lot of flexibility where families are wanting to switch the time, and so it's a little bit fluid. So I try not to, um, it's yeah. So I think it's just more more comfortable for how we do it at our agency, but I recognize that it is helpful for other agencies.
Mhm. Yep. Did that answer your question, Katie? And I don't see anybody. I can't see anybody, anybody's camera anymore. Is that a positive? Yes. I can't see. Okay, so I'll assume you said
I'm
yes.
sorry, my mic was up, but yes. Oh my gosh.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Uh, so, yep. Evaluation is CC respond. Yep. So check to see. Once the appointment now is confirmed and the family's information goes to the stabilization provider. The stabilization provider now is planning to meet with the family. Let's say the appointment was scheduled for Thursday. Now it's Tuesday, you have some time. So I would really recommend, because this is part of the work itself, that that person creates a window on their calendar to kind of review in a more comprehensive way all that information that came. And I'm not saying that in a way that it's not being done, but I've seen supervising a team of 15 in Ohio, I have seen sometimes when individuals might not really, they want to go in and connect with the family right away, and it creates this confusion of like, but you didn't hear that I said that, or you didn't know that I did this, or you didn't know that this was going on. So I recommended anybody who got a family referral, they put that on their calendar, review for SC, whoever that was, or review for AD. And I created about an hour to an hour and a half on my calendar so that I am really knowledgeable of the situation I'm walking into. If you do that, then you see you have some strategies in how you want to build that engagement. If you're really going blind because they're just on your calendar and you know you're going to meet with family, and you're feeling that you can get the information from the family themselves at that moment, there are times where the situation is really complex and families have told and talked about their needs with an individual. So while I'm there, it's not that I want to shut out the family out and say, this is what I was given, and all I want to do is focus on what I have on, in front of me, rather than what you want to tell me. That's not the goal. The goal is you have that as a source while you're engaging with the family. So tell me about, you said he was in residential before. Yes, he was in residential for a year. He just came back home a couple days ago. And he went out, he ran away. This was a family I dealt with in Ohio. He went to the police station and he said he doesn't have a place to stay. So the police took him to a shelter, they took him to downtown, and now the family brought all of these things. And I go, okay, so can you tell me? So the family know if I go in and I go, yeah, there was a referral for you to work with me. Now tell me about family. Sometimes feel it's really tired and they go like, I thought you had something that you wanted to come in and work with me rather than make me narrate my own story over and over again. So I highly recommend, just to make sure that you have a part of your practice, daily practice, that you create on your calendar, something that kind of shows you, yeah, I am meeting with so and so tomorrow. I really need to get their information and look through their case notes. An hour before, and this is something that came up because sometimes families, they schedule meetings and you show up and the family goes, I don't really know, like I didn't know, I wasn't expecting you, or something happened that I'm no longer home or available at this time. I went to I was training somebody and we went to a family home. We got there and the mother said, yeah, I am at the post office, give me 5 minutes. I guarantee you, we waited for about an hour outside in the parking lot because she said, I went to the post office 30 minutes ago and I wasn't sure you guys were coming. If I knew you guys were coming, I would have stayed home and then have gone to the post office after meeting with you. Now I'm in line. I waited for a long time. I don't want to leave, but you just have to wait. So when you call an hour before, it also gives a window to the family of like, yeah, somebody's really coming out to talk to me. So there are times when families might, have, you know, clean their home if they at least expecting somebody to come as a guest. Maybe they have some errands that they wanted to do or run, but by you calling them, that gives them a confirmation that somebody is really coming out. Families sometimes are used to having an appointment and nobody showing up. So their recommendation is, if I'm meeting with family at 11 a.m. today, I'll call an hour before. Hey, um, is this Ahmed's, dad? Yeah. I just wanted to let you know that I will be coming out to see you this morning at 11 a.m. I have it that I am coming to your home at this address. Is that correct? Yes. They might not be at the home. They might be at some place different and still wanted to meet with you. So that confirmation kind of takes a, makes it easier for like the logistical part to happen in a smoother way.
Let me add something on there too, aside.
Yep. Yep.
I know it can be difficult because we really want to meet the needs of families and youth, but I really want to encourage our wonderful responders to try to stick within the time that agencies are available. So the tricky part is sometimes, families are like, I'm only available at 7:30 p.m. on a Friday, and that's totally okay, right? We do want to, respond and meet those needs. But sometimes what's been happening is, you know, uh, I'll get a referral and then it'll say 6:30 p.m., when our agency in particular doesn't schedule past 6 p.m. And then, I won't give any pushback and say, hey, can you guys do an earlier time? Or, I'll just send the referral out to the coordinator that's assigned. And then when they do meet the family, they find out, oh, well, we could have met at 4:30, or we could, that there's more flexibility. So although we want to be readily available, because sometimes we do know kids have after school, they have sports, other family obligations, there's work stuff. So we know that there's a bunch of complexities. But we also want to encourage um, us to like try to work collaboratively to really stick in that time beforehand, if at all possible. And it's not to like push the family outside of their comfort zone, but really to try to help us be able to accommodate families when there are those outliers happening. Because the tricky part is, and whatever, I'll just call it out, like the annoying part can be, for a care coordinator, if you go to a family's house and it's super late in the evening, and then you talk with the family and they're like, oh, well, yeah, you could have came at 3 today. And I think sometimes when the crisis might happen and the responder goes out in the evening, that, there's a real risk to be like, okay, well, I know you're available at 7 p.m. because I've been called out here at 7 p.m. So on the referral, I'm going to just put 7 p.m. But really just kind of, lean with curiosity to see if the family is available during times that are within the agency's parameters. Again, we know that that's not going to happen regular, the outliers are going to be there, right? Like like, oh, I'm only available at 7:30 on a Friday, or 6:30, whatever. But like, just to put this out here to everybody, please try to stay within the parameters if at all possible. And if not, obviously we'll be flexible.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. I appreciate that, Casey. Recognizing that sometimes, the response is 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. So the families might think if Penn shows up at 10 p.m., that maybe the stabilization can also work around the same time. So with the preference of, yeah, these are the times that the, you stabilization is available. Can you, if they say no, then we know for sure that's a family that we need to look outside of that window. And it's also some area where I also want to track at some point to see how do we have done this with all our services here, expansion goals, expansion strategies. How do we meet the needs of families if this is an increase in need that's happening in community of like 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. or too early in the morning? However we see weekends, I know weekends are not part of the civilization at this moment. Those are some things that I would like to also identify and work with you on some strategies to see how can we expand to, so families are feeling we're more flexible to their needs rather than they're more flexible to our needs. So a valid point, Casey. I appreciate that. And I just want to, emphasize that yes, that priority will still continue. If a family says that there is no other time I'm available except for this time, then Casey and Samir and their teams are willing to uh, work with those families, as you said, an outlier. Uh, I'm looking at the chat. I have not looked at the chat before, so let me look at if we have a.
I just wanted to add.
Yep, go ahead, Ashley. Ashley, you're muted. You're not muted, but so for some reason we lost your audio. I lost your audio. Can you guys hear?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, my computer is being so weird. But I think a common thing that we see is family scheduling later in the evening, because during the day the kiddos are in school and then the parents are at work. So that is a need that we are seeing. What kind of guidance would you give for that, Assad?
And that's the need, right? That's how the family the last thing we want to do is create a situation where we're asking a parent and caregiver to leave their work and their livelihood so that they can meet. Yes, there's a crisis that happens that they need additional support. So if we're forcing families to either give up their livelihood for that day to come and work with us, and the same thing, actually, thank you for mentioning that, the same conversation we have had on Friday with a different team that I'm in a work group where parents and caregivers sometimes felt and said that to us, that county programs, we were talking about foster care support team, it feels as if the families have to adjust to the county's need rather than the county adjusting to their need. So if a family, the youth is at school, there's something that happened. Now the family calls for a response. Response is able to meet with them at 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. when the parent came home and the youth is home now. And now they go, yeah, I really could use this window to have additional support. Yes. And I would also like to also see if are we seeing more of a need in the morning. So how do we structure our schedule? This is something I would like to kind of explore and work with different agencies of, do we have a staggered kind of schedule so that we're not all starting at 8 p.m., 8 a.m. and all finishing at 4 p.m. So there's a way of overlapping schedules that maybe I'm not available in the morning, but I'm more available in the afternoon. So that's a good question too. So those is things that I would like to continue partner. And I've asked evaluation too, for like how many families are going in. Can you look at the confirmation of those appointments? Can we see what is the most common request for families, wise and then time wise, so that I have a little more data to kind of rely and help me make those decision making as a collaborative strategy too, to see where we needed to make those shifts. So I don't have that full report yet, but that's an area where I'm more need of support from evaluation.
Yeah, I just wanted to, quickly add on. I totally get that as well. I wasn't necessarily talking about the people who like that's their specific need because like, oh, parents drive, we had one where the youth's parent drove trucks. So they were only available at 7:30 p.m. on Fridays every other week. So that was like the only time we could like snag them. So that's totally understandable. I was more specifically talking about when the care coordinator, when like we have a 6:30 or 7 o'clock time that we're like getting on the referrals, and then when the care coordinator goes in there and the family is more flexible and does have different time, it can be frustrating because it's like, well, everybody wants to be seen at 4:30 or later. So if there was a different time, they can move families that they have a more established relationship around to accommodate that after school time that most families want to be seen in. But it gets so tricky because the responders are totally flexible and can go to like 8, 9, 10, 11 o'clock. But like for just specifically for like my staff, I'm not gonna ask Andre, a black man, to be in Mendota Heights at 8 o'clock at night driving. Like, I mean, it's fine. Like, obviously, he's an adult male and his stuff is valid. But there are cultural things that, like, it is a little bit overwhelming and can be a little bit scary just with the society we live in. My staff is, we have a Liberian woman, we have a Latina female, we have a black male, and some of these areas that they're in. And that's why I have them partner. Sometimes, they do come back and say, I was a little nervous. I was a little scared because of, my cultural background. I was a little bit nervous about being in these places, deep into the night, especially when it's a single female going out into like these further areas. So I do usually try to have them partner, and it's not that, the responders aren't putting themselves at the same risk. So I want to like acknowledge that too. But, that's why I try to like say, okay, let's be flexible if we can. It's more of like when they go in and they find out the family does have a little bit more flexibility than like before.
Yep. No, absolutely. And that's
And
something we will continue to go ahead.
right. And to clarify, that's what you all set up moving forward after that initial visit. That's a conversation that you're going to have anyways. And I would anticipate those times would always be changing and evolving as you're working with the family. But that initial appointment, again, to clarify, it's not something that our responders are just choosing, as you mentioned. They're not just putting something on the time on the referral form that's reflective of the time that they're in there. They're giving families two choices that work best for them. And, if they offer the times that are, in the evening, we're not going to persuade them to choose an earlier time. So those are just those first initial visits that we're getting their best times for. What gets scheduled after that would not need to be reflective of that initial time. So I would suspect that if that was something that is able to change, that it would moving forward.
Karen, you have your hand up before I jump in. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I was gonna say too, yeah, we do let them pick their initial times, and I've noticed too that in those initial times, they're in crisis, so they're pretty rigid. Like they kind of think that this is gonna be a set time forever, and I'm with Kayla, yeah, it will evolve with time, but yeah, we are giving them the option, and I have noticed that the time is a lot more rigid when we first meet with them because they are going through a lot.
Mm-hmm. And yep, and again, I appreciate everybody's feedback on this one. As we continue to kind of learn, I want us to center the family and youth's needs first, because again, if we're saying with respect to also our availability, so if we're offering the times, we would like to continue saying these are, when are you available? If they say, yep, these are the times they're available, the ones we're picking kind of aligns with the availabilities of the agencies, but not in a way to say like if you have to only accept it these times. So in principle, I agree, everybody, we're all, having the same understanding, but from a different lens. And those are some things, as I mentioned, I would track on my side too, to kind of identify when are those needs are, the times where those referrals are, confirmed, the times that families are requesting. But at this moment, I just want to say we will continue to support families' needs. Again, if this is a parent who is at work and now getting a phone call, they meet with you and they go, maybe, this time worked for me today. Maybe it will work for me the next time. But then if you build that relationship, again, as Kayla, you mentioned too, of this is the initial appointment. So as you build that relationship, you can also explore what availabilities are there. And we're not setting each other up in a way that kind of makes it feel like the other one has, to work harder to support families. So we're all on the same page. Katie, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I kind of think that something I found that works, and I know that we need kind of more this like black and white due to the no barriers in the home, right, is our biggest thing, right, for families. However, I honestly am seeing like kind of both sides for this. I know everybody's seeing all sides, please know that. But I mean, as a stabilization person that works closely with response, being under the same, like I've built up the rapport, so I have that advantage with my team. But what if there is something where, so I know we need the set appointment because the big fear is when families are out of crisis, they're like, okay, we're fine. So that's why I get we need the scheduled appointment. And they can minimize it, right? Or rationalize that it's just this time. So what if though they say like days that they're more likely to be free and then like a chunk of time. And then for me personally, I like to have my team give me their days. And then they do the time because I understand that's policy, but I'm going to put myself on blast a bit. I also ask if you see for my side, it's a little bit more blank on the set time because of the infrastructure of Hennepin County just being absolute crap, even though it says only 15 minutes, let's say from Edina to Eden Prairie, the 94, the light rail's being built, all of that, like, let's be honest, infrastructure in Minnesota is not great and it's on purpose. So going off that cultural background of even what Casey said, and please say, as a white woman, I know I can only say so much, guys, so please know that. What if we had the days that are free, but then left it on stabilization to shoot a text message before calling to the family? That's what I do, and say, hey, I'm Katie from like I work with so-and-so, or this is my teammate. And then we can give you a call, or do you want to still interested in stabilization? It's on us to text to confirm within, let's say, another certain days within the 3 days. What if we kind of change the distinction between intake versus weekly reports? Because sometimes I start weekly right away. This is all overlapping nuances. I understand this. But like Jose kind of had worked out with me Monday through Wednesday, like having that be week 1. But I'll be honest, it's easier for me with how busy we are to do intake and then establish that rapport and see what patterns are more free. Because I get where Casey's coming from, and with families being in crisis. So what if they gave us days they were free, and then put it more on the stabilization provider to help schedule an exact time, since we know our schedules. Like I just found out recently that my team can't see my details, so I started sharing the details with my supervisors. So like for when if I'm in Brooklyn Park, they can help me schedule like in Brooklyn Park or on my way home to Apple Valley. You know what I mean? So I think that's some more communication too we can talk about internally, and having a cheat sheet of people's schedules. Like mine just switched to Tuesday through Friday tentatively. I'm working with Kayla on that, but yeah, sorry, that was a lot. Basically,
No.
there's a lot of overlapping nuances is my thought.
No, absolutely. And again, as we try to explore what's the most efficient way of making this connection, there are some things, as you mentioned, the reason why we didn't want an open-ended days available that we're sending to is so that we can limit the number of the individuals that are talking to families at once. So if I'm working with a family at the response phase, and within that 72 hours, I should be able to facilitate a smoother transition with the family of, yeah, these are the dates I'm available. Yeah, stabilization, this is what they do. These are the times you're available. And I am able to confirm that appointment for once that email comes back and says, yep, we are, 2 p.m. on Friday, it's okay. The next time they talk to Katie, all they're doing is talking to Katie so that they don't have to worry about Perrin was talking to me about something, and now Katie is trying to confirm an appointment with that time. And then what also is outside of the fidelity of the model is once a family is in response, if we just send dates that are out and confirmation, and that confirmation never takes place, now evaluation is really out in the dark of what happens. Was this more of the stabilization provider, or the response information was not? I don't know if at some point when we have a common EHR, and that's something I've said before, if something like that is in place where we all can access each other's information. Let's say a family came in, parent can see, these are the times that I'm available, and goes, yeah, we can have somebody available to work with you, and clicks on my calendar, and all of a sudden it goes onto my calendar. Now I don't have any issue, or my availabilities are there on that schedule. At some point we might get there, but at this moment, this is the best of ways to make sure that we confirm the appointment at the response phase, send that information to the stabilization, they confirm it. And then from there on, as they build the relationship with family, if there is a different changes or different schedule needs, they can work with family, because now they have that relationship with family, but not create in a way that they're talking to multiple individuals all at once. Kate, Taylor, did you put any information? I just saw we could just have this. Yep. And then that's the other one of the first appointment. If we have a first appointment, let's say we're tracking on the response through evaluation. An email goes out and says, yep, Ashley sends an email and it goes, yep, 2 p.m. on Friday. Samira responds, yes, 2 p.m. on Friday works for us. Now, evaluation goes, yeah, that's a family that went from response to stabilization, and that family is getting support within the first 3 days. Fidelity to the model, right? Now, Samira calls the family and goes, yeah, can we schedule that to Tuesday next week? And the family goes, yeah. Now, evaluation doesn't receive, or there is no progress notes that are being sent. So it creates all these confusions. I understand sometimes we really have to change and adjust. At this moment, I just want to make sure that we're sticking to this. And then if there's additional conversations on some changes that we can all make, that we all have that in a different setting, and then we can just send that confirmation. But I just don't want in this meeting, in this space, to open these uncertainties of, can we do that or can we not do that? So if all these suggestions, I would like to kind of copy the chat after today's meeting, put it into our next conversations, and then talk about how those might be a better policies or procedures or practices. But at this moment, I just don't want to open that ambiguity of like, we can all do how we see it. So at this moment, a confirmation appointment is agreed. That goes to the stabilization provider. Stabilization provider agrees to, and then confirms with the responder. And then from there on, we build the relationship with families. Anything outside of that, I'm more than happy to have those conversations. But again, I just don't want within that short time we have to kind of have that discussion on what could it be. So an hour before, we talk to the families, just making sure, yep, we are able to kind of come out, the families is still available. Then what happens if you had an appointment 1 hour before, the family you call and the family goes, yeah, today doesn't work for me. Can we schedule this to Tuesday? And you go, absolutely, we can. And then you schedule with the family to Thursday, whatever, next Tuesday, if whatever they say. And then what would be the next step should be? Because just as I said before, evaluation sees the time you agree to. Responders, if something happens and then the family calls, they don't know what the time might have changed. So what the recommendation is, I would send an email, just an email, not a progress note that says Assad's appointment for today was canceled and rescheduled to Tuesday next week due to family's request. If I call response again on Friday and I go, yeah, they can say, oh yeah, you were supposed to have an appointment for some reason it was canceled on Tuesday on that day, and then you have it on Tuesday. Were you looking for somebody to meet on Tuesday, or is this a new crisis? So the families don't really feel like we're not communicating with each other. So if there's a cancellation, just an email, a short email, just as if you were sending a progress note that just says the family's appointment was canceled, the next appointment is this time. That would suffice. If a family, you go into somebody's home and the family, for whatever reason, does not answer you call them an hour before, they didn't answer. And then now you go, I'm still gonna go because I have an appointment and the family might, the phone might be charging or whatever thing is going on. I'm just gonna go. You show up, the family is not there. Again, you could just say the family was no show. I would call the family on Monday to reschedule this appointment. Again, that's it. If the family calls, then they can be, they can let them know, the responders, hey, Katie tried to, she showed up and she couldn't find you. Is anything going on? Do you want to talk to Katie? Is that all you were looking for to connect with? Or are you having a new crisis? Does that make sense? Because there are times where this process was a struggle of somebody goes, yeah, the family canceled last week, and then there was no progress note. And we shouldn't have a progress note if an appointment was canceled, but there was no notification of why. And evaluation sees this huge gap of the family. The last time they were seen was 4/19. The next time they're seen is 5/2. 2 weeks have gone by, and we have no idea why the family did not receive a stabilization, nor do we have any reasons why to believe there might be some issues going on. Does that clarify on the expectation of like on the day of, yep, 5 minutes, an hour before you confirm? If you are unable to confirm, you are still scheduled to meet with the family. A no-show or reschedulement, you're just letting responders and just as if you were sending a progress note, just letting them know that appointment is rescheduled or a no-show. Let me go to the next one then. After the initial meeting, so now let's say this is a new family. I read their case report. I created a time to kind of understand what the issue from a responder perspective. I was able to call and connect with family and confirm the appointment. I show up. I'm building the relationship with family, understanding their need. The first thing I need to be mindful of is also the National Outcomes Measure tool, the NOMS intake. For those of you who are new, who might not have that training, evaluation team creates that training and they will be more than happy to do this training. This is a tool that SAMHSA, the federal government, who is our funder, requires us to use in order to track the intervention progress. The intervention, I would say, effectiveness of interventions. Because at this moment, they're coming in, the national outcomes measure kind of has pre-intervention norms. So have you completed that? This is time sensitive too. Within the first 7 days of you working with family, I'm not saying this is the first time you meet with family, you're saying, okay, let me fill this form out. It could be the first time you connect with family, explain your role, what you do, how you support family, understand more of their need, and then prep them for the next time I come. I have two forms that I would need to complete. One is, this is to kind of see how your needs are at this moment, and then to see the support I give you, are they making any difference at some point? The second one is the consent form, and the consent form is not consent for services. That one is assigned at the response phase. Since we're all in one program that has two components, there is no additional consent to work with Change Inc. or Summit that needs to be signed. This is more of after the services end at the conclusion of 8 weeks. Would you give us permission to have a community interviewer call you and ask you how we have done, how you can provide feedback of this, what you liked and what we can improve on, because it would really help us deliver quality services receiving your feedback. Even if they decline, they still have to sign so that we don't follow up with them accidentally. So they can either check yes, there are two boxes. When they say yes, they sign, and then when they say decline, and then they would sign so that we know who we need to follow up with and who we don't need to follow up with. So, but this is not a consent for services. These two documentations are really critical and time sensitive, because if we get these within the first 7 days of referral, then we can track this on our data for SAMHSA on families we serve. If a family is in service for 3 weeks, and we still don't have the NAMIS intake and the consent form, then the question becomes, is this even a pre-intervention NAMIS? Because if I worked with the family for 2 weeks and now I'm asking them, I want to see how you are when you were coming in, it doesn't really provide a valid, the validity of that documentation is highly questionable. The second one is the consent form. We've had families who ended services, and then at the end of the service, we were debating on, we don't have a consent form. Should the community interviewers connect to it or not connect to it? Respecting families' wishes. So these are two documentation that need to be with evaluation the first 7 days of referral to stabilization. Any questions about that specific piece? All right. 7 days of the referral. And then the progress note. The progress note is, I don't want to say that I don't want to compare it to clinical notes, but it's exactly similar to. It's due in 24 hours. So if I see somebody today, I can either put that information either this afternoon at the end of my shift or my time, or the next morning before I start my work. The reason being is, if I work with family in the civilization, and I'm sending that progress note 24 hours. Something happens and that family calls is the response. And then they go, yeah, you are working with Assad for 4 weeks. I don't really know. Is this a new crisis or is this something different? So that progress note is the clinical or the notes that we're relying on to kind of see where the families are getting the support. They're sent to responders, again, evaluation, and then the response supervisor. This does not change. The only thing that's different from when it was before, the responder who worked with the family is now CC'd on this email chain. We've struggled with initially of this progress note because progress notes were created. Agencies might not have shared with their responders, and then it creates this confusion of what family comes in and we have nothing to rely on to say, yeah, we're either supporting you or we're not supporting, because that progress note is missing. So this is a critical piece. If you work with family within 24 hours of you working with, please make sure that information goes to responders. If you're working with family for, let's say now week 7, the conclusion of the service is week 8. Now the week 7, I would kind of start having a conversation on transition out process. I would even like to go further. If you're working with a family and you at 4 weeks, you feel this is a family that needs additional support beyond this 8 weeks, and majority of our families need additional long-term support, that's the time when you need to have a consultation with your supervisor of what resources and support are out there in community that I can make a referral for this family. Because sometimes it takes 4 weeks to just navigate the processes or the landscape of finding out, the connection. There's a wait time. So we don't want to, at the conclusion of the services, the family goes, I really need support. And you go, yeah, I can only work with you 8 weeks. But then you go find something. So if you are working with the family and at midpoint you feel the family needs additional support, you have that conversation with your supervisor. I'm even more than happy to kind of, if you have any questions of what services are in the county, what are some requirements, I'm more than happy to kind of start that conversation with you as well. If a family you feel is not needing additional support beyond the 8 weeks, week 7, you start having the conversation of like, yeah, we're gonna transition out. This is the form that we will complete the discharge report, and then a community interviewer would call you almost within 3 days of family discharging from the service, just so that we can do the NOMS post-intervention. The NOM is when the family are coming in, what we're looking at, how did they function the last 30 days? And then we're comparing that to, at the conclusion of the 8 weeks, how the family is functioning. And then we're trying to kind of see, did the intervention kind of create a support that decreases some of their challenging situations that they were dealing with? And are the family, we also have some qualitative data too. What we also saw is a family that was discharged or ended the service. We don't see notes. The discharge report was never sent to evaluation. So evaluation was going, yeah, this family was discharged 4 weeks ago. The note now goes out to them, and then they go, we were really supposed to talk to this family within 3 days of ending the services. Now it has been 4 weeks. Even if we talk to them, the data we gather is not valid based on the requirement from SAMHSA. So there are a number of families that we had in our support, provided stabilization service, that we could not really count, in all honesty, with our data tracking to say to SAMHSA, yeah, we supported this family, because the data we have does not really line with the requirement. And we would never lie about saying, yeah, they discharged 2 days ago when they discharged 4 weeks ago. So if you have a family that are in week 7, start that planning conversation of like, yeah, this is the family that will talk to you. Community interviewers that would call you. All they're doing is just to see how you're doing and some feedback you can offer in terms of how we did. It would help us improve our service. So that's also the other piece. I would recommend people to kind of go back and see, like, what does the discharge report? As a simple report, you send it to evaluation. It has to be within the first 3 days of the family discharging out, because our community interviewers, we have to schedule that quickly. We have 6 individuals that do interview with families after family ends stabilization. If the turnaround is that short and we go outside of that window, I would never take the risk of putting data that does not really meet the requirement criteria for us to say we supported this family. So that's the last piece of that process one of evaluation, is also has that information so that there is no gap in communication. So that's the last piece before I move into more what's the specific requirement that a progress note has to have. Does anybody have any question? Anybody, any questions? All right. Give me 1 second.
Assad, you're muted.
I said a brilliant idea. I cannot never repeat that. Just gone. So the other one was something I didn't add into this 2 slides, but it's something that is an outlier. Let's say a family is in a stabilization. You work with the family and the family goes, yeah, you call them, you schedule an appointment, you met with them week 1, and then week 2, they canceled the appointment. Week 3, they canceled the appointment. So 3 times in 2 weeks, they canceled the appointment, or you're not able to get in touch with. This is a family you have worked with them for 2 weeks. You're comfortable that if you were to go to their home, it's not going to raise an alarm or anything to them. Just to kind of do your due diligence of maybe the phone line doesn't work. For a lot of families, that's a fact. So what I would like for us to do is, if we call a family and they're not answering the phone, we were scheduled to meet with them, we will go to the home, they're not there. 2 days later, I will call them again. They don't respond, or I'll wait another 2 days and then I will call again. So that kind of gives us more of a week to a week, a couple of days, 3 times within 2 different days in between. We left a voicemail and the family is still not able to respond to us, that's a family now we're kind of thinking of a discharge process, right? Because what happened is we see a family and we go, yeah, I called that family and they didn't answer the phone. For some reason, sometimes we don't have them on our roster, but they're in a stabilization support. We don't know why. We just say we talked to them a week ago and 2 weeks have gone by, and then we go, yeah, we called them and they didn't respond. Just to have a methodical process. If we call, we give 2 days, we check again, we leave a voicemail. If there are multiple phones, check your notes. If you are comfortable, this is a family you have been, worked with before, that you can go and knock on the door and go, hey, what's going on, family? Then it's okay. For 3 times, different attempts, then we can discharge that family out. That's something that we might all have good faith and good intentions of like, hey, I still want to support the family, but I'm not able to connect. Then what do we do? The second scenario was a family that now is in response. A stabilization referral has been made, but the family goes, yeah, I'm going to be out the whole summer. We had a crisis. I would really like to benefit from a stabilization, but I just want to let you know I'm going to be out in India for the summer. I'll come back in August. Can I have a stabilization support at that time? That's a family now at the response phase. We can go, yeah, if you call when you come back and if you have something going on, there is no wait list. So you don't have to think about worrying about, yeah, I'm gonna put myself on a wait list. And then when I come back, I already have something I can, connect with. Explain to them of like, yeah, if there's anything that happens while you're there, you can call, or when you come back, you can call response, and then we can, maybe the priorities might change at that time. So we don't want to work stabilization, work for something that happened 3 months ago when there is no connection in that interim. So you can still talk to the family, but not make a formal referral for stabilization if we know they're going to be gone for months in between. The third scenario was a family that is in stabilization that goes, yeah, this is our 4th week. We are going to be going to Ohio for a month. Then when we come back, I would like to continue stabilization. Then what do we do? For 4 weeks, that's a long time. Even if we're using the National Outcomes Measure tool at that time, the effectiveness or interventions have not been in place for that long. It all kind of creates a confusion of, is the family in their service or not? So that's a family where we can say, yep, more than 2 weeks. If somebody's going out on vacation, more than 2 weeks, or doesn't want services, then we can say, if you call, if you have additional needs when you come back, you can call a response. Now you can get an additional 8 weeks rather than now 4 weeks you're gone, and then when you come back, you're only getting 4 weeks. It creates a lot of confusion. So I would send a follow-up email after this training to kind of also point that out. If a family is in response needing stabilization and they're going out for a long time, we just say call again if you have a response, if you have a need in response. If it's a family that's already in stabilization, they're going to be out for more than 2 weeks, then we can start a transition plan of, and then they can call back when they come back. The other one was if a family you're multiple attempts to locate and connect with, and you have done 3 times to connect with, 2 days in between, and you're still having difficulty, then those is a family that you can, discuss that plan with your supervisor and then start a transition out plan. Does that make sense to everybody? I know it was not in there, but I had some notes on the side. I would follow up today's training with that email, kind of summarizes what I just said, but I wanted to see if it's landing for everyone or differently. All right. So let me jump back to the progress note. Progress note. Again, this is something I've mentioned before. If I'm working with the family or planning to work with the family, I would want to be very knowledgeable of their situation and their need so that I'm not making them repeat themselves again. So I would review the cat. The cat has a recommendation at the bottom, and those are how my SMART goals are going to be based on. What does the recommendation say? If this is a youth, and this is a family I worked with in Ohio, if this is the recommendation of the youth is having a truancy court case because he has missed a lot of his school days, the youth went to a gas station, grabbed items and ran out crossing 4-lane traffic. Not only is a criminal behavior, but is also a risk for harm of self. The youth has hit his mother and siblings, continues to, and the school has mentioned that he never follows the rule. Those are the recommendations that the cat made in working with this youth. So that's how I want to tackle the first things. I want to prioritize. I know in practice that I'm not going to go into a family situation and try to talk about all of this all at once. So I want to see what is the priority, where might be the source of. If the youth was supposed to be at school, but now he's out in community making criminal activities by going to a gas station at 11 p.m. 11 a.m., then I want to know, maybe school, is this an issue that if he's angry and he's hitting his siblings when he's home, I want to know, are there some opportunities that were missed? Maybe is there a support or something beneath the surface that I'm not seeing? So Mike, so what sometimes I fail to see, and I look at a couple of, on a weekly basis, I try to see, I try to sample some of the progress notes. There are times where I look at the full follow an individual from response. I'm looking at their, the documentation, and then I look at the progress notes the first 2 to 3 times. And sometimes I fail to make the connection of how the crises that happen here is driving, or the recommendations that were made, driving the support that the youth and families are getting. Sometimes there is really no connection at all. So what I want to see, and I'm not saying, I'm not generalizing everybody, but what I also wanted to see, just in standardizing our process, those recommendations really form the basis of the support that the family is getting. So Mike missed school the last 2 weeks, refuses to wake up for school. He spends most of his days in his room sleeping and wakes up late in the afternoon. He gets agitated when his parents remind him that he missed his school again. He leaves home in the evening and returns around midnight when the family is already asleep. So that was what, as I looked into what the truancy with Mike was, that, yeah, he's sleeping during the day and he's up and out during the night. So if I was trying to create SMART goals, I can't just create a SMART goal of Mike will go back to school 3 times a week. And then I will work with him on going to school. And yeah, I will reassess to see after 2 weeks how he's doing. That's a very wishful thinking. And I've had somebody I supervised in Ohio. The SMART goals were the goals, but I didn't really see the objectives of how that was going to be achieved. The objective is the means of how you're gonna get that. I would like for Mike to go back to school, but he's not gonna go back to school just because somebody new he's never saw before comes to his home and tells him he needs to go back to school. That's not how it works, because if his mom is telling him he needs to go to school and he's refusing, what makes me think that he's going to listen to me? somebody who shows up for 2 hours a week. So that's some challenges we were struggling with. Of the goal is not the objective. The goal is the way we want to Mike to improvement, and the objective is how we're going to get that done. And it's not going to be just you making that, the deliverable is to kind of understand and restate and redefine why I'm even there. Because there were times where they thought I was a parole officer. There were times where they thought I was a child protection officer. So my first goal, as I understand Mike and his struggle and those recommendations, is to kind of build rapport with family. Like I want to hear from Mike. What are some, like, Mike, tell me this is what I'm hearing. You are sleeping during the day. Like when you go out, where are you going? Do you work in the afternoon? Do you have a job? You're hanging out with friends. What kind of friends do you hang out? Where do you guys go? What do you do? Just kind of in a non-judgmental way. I'm curious to know what, and the parent too. Like, tell me a little more about, was he missing school his whole life? Is this something new? Something happened in the home? Did you recently move? Is there a change in the household? All of those things kind of understand more of without going like, tell me about the school. I'm trying to kind of set a greater understanding of the needs that might be contributing to, rather than just address that point in time. And then I want to explain to them, like, what is FRSS? Like, this is what I do. So for me, the services are voluntary. I want to make sure I want to connect with Mike and understand reason for his truancy. Is he getting bullied? Is he behind academically? Does he have an IEP? Does he need an IEP, 504 plan? All of those things. Also, I want to hear from parent and caregiver. How did he do? Like when he was in kindergarten, how did he do it in elementary school? Now he's a high school student. Was he ever held back? All of that. And then I want to connect consent from the parent. Is it okay if I were to talk to the school? Just see what support he's getting or what information, uh, and then identifying all those existing support infrastructure. So the reason why I said this is more of a mini wraparound, this was an exact family I worked with in Ohio. 17 years old, the parent called multiple times to family response and stabilization. Whenever the family, this is what happened before. The school said, called the parent and said, yeah, you need to have a diagnostic assessment for your son because he's not doing well. We think he needs to have something support in place and a diagnostic a recommendation. The parent goes, no, we're not doing that. But every day the parent was getting a call from his school, an automated call. Whenever his son went to school, he was getting a call that he was not doing what he was supposed to be doing. When he was home, the parent was getting a phone call that his son missed the school today. On top of that, there was a truancy court case that was pending. So the parent said, you know what, I'm just gonna call. This team kept calling us. When we first time went to this home, the dad said, yeah, he's in this house, he's in this room, connect with him, open the door. I mean, we're not gonna wake up a 17-year-old who doesn't want to talk to us, right? So we kind of talked to the parent, and the parent said, yep. And we talked to Mike. Mike said, yeah, I would like to work with somebody. Perfect. Recommendations were made for those specific points from our responders. Now I worked with the stabilization team going in, and when we went in and talked to the parent and caregiver, it was more of, yeah, he always struggled. He always was having a behavioral issue. He always needed additional support. The family recently moved from New York to Ohio. And then when we kind of said to the parent, can you help us talk to the school? We called, connected with the school, and the school were telling us he's never done work. He's never submitted any assignment. He's always leaving the classroom and out in the hallway. He's very disruptive in class. He And then we said, okay, so he's new to the school. Let's connect with, is it okay if we connected with his school back in New York? They said, "Yeah, absolutely." We called in New York. And then at that moment, the family were telling us, or the school said, he's always had an IEP. He was not having an IEP in Ohio. So all of the support he was getting before, personalized support to help him with his learning disability, were all taken away and ignored. All of a sudden, he's finding himself in a classroom that he doesn't understand what's going on. So he's having behavior escalation because he is, in fact, lashing out in a way to kind of say, I don't want to be here. So when we connected with the school, Buffalo, they sent us the information. We went to the school. The school were like, how did you find this information? Like, where did you dig up? And we said, no, the family allowed us to talk to the school. All of a sudden, he was given an IEP support, and Mike was going to school more and more until he graduated a few years later with his an IEP support, right? There is no way we could go in and say to Mike, the goal is for you to go to school 3 times a week the first 2 weeks, because we didn't really change the condition that was causing him to miss his school. So when I say the objective, it's not you create a goal, you create a plan that is not in line with the need, but you kind of try to identify what you connecting with those collaterals is the objective, right? So there are times where I see the goal looks really generous and I see the objective and I go, there is no way this kid who was having issues with the school, that they only talk to us and all of a sudden they're doing wonderful things. So when I say mini rep, is you build the rapport with family, you talk to the youth, you identify a collateral too. That might be the school. If he has whoever is, county caseworker, a county case manager, targeted case management, you identify that. And I talk to them and I say, hey, are you supporting this youth? Yeah. How do you support? Oh yeah, he's getting medication management. Oh, okay, wonderful. Has he been more compliant with? Is this something that, yeah, he's doing wonderful. He has medication. Okay, so I'm supporting the family around something different, so that it doesn't feel like we're all repeating the same thing and the family goes, yeah, it's not helping. Yep. So this was Mike. He's failing in all of his classes, doesn't see a point. This is exactly in going to school. He spends time together with his friends at their house and plays video games until midnight. He thinks it's a waste of time going to school. Mike's teacher said that he is failing because he missed so many days of school. His school would like to connect Mike with homework help and recommend an IEP assessment. So the goal, Mike will try to come back from his friends at 9 p.m. and go to school 3 times a week for the first 2 weeks. If this is the goal, do we have an objective? Do we have the means? Do we have the support in place that helps the condition be better for him than it was before we connected with him? So that's where sometimes I see the disconnect, and I don't want to go. I know we have a few minutes. I will send this presentation to everybody, and we have the recording. If somebody wants to go back and rewatch something, feel free to. But I just want the connection to the goals and those smart goals to really reflect on how we are helping do some of the work, rather than we're connecting with family and just saying, yeah, we really see this need and this is the goal we're creating and you are going to reach this goal. Because if we're setting it in that way, I don't think that's going to be achievable. So I know we have a few minutes. I just wanted to see anybody has any questions, anybody has any comments. I would send a summary of a couple of the other process level questions, but oftentimes the progress notes within 24 hours, the progress notes really center on the recommendations that came from response, and then the goals and the objectives that are created really do align in a way that it doesn't feel we're setting a high expectation or expectations that the youth and family are not going to. And it's us that are kind of identifying, like, tell me about who you work with. Have you ever had an agency that you worked with? Yeah. What did they do for you? Oh, they did the case management. Oh, do you have a case manager? Yeah, let me have that information. Is it okay if I were able to connect? Once you kind of do the work yourself in coordination with family, you will change the environment for that youth to have a higher chance of reaching those goals that are recommended in um, the CAT recommendation. Anybody has any questions? I know this is the final series of our training this year. And then if you have any questions, if you have any comments, if you have a need, if you have any feedback, I am more than happy to kind of, have a conversation by email or better on Teams. So feel free to reach out. Samira, you have your hand up.
Yes, I'm glad we get to do this, Asad. I feel like we spend a lot of time on the process and how the two agency link together and what are needed to do the documentation and all of that. Maybe something that I'm missing is with stabilization itself, there's more to it when we meet with families. Let's say we are all in Hennepin County, there is a specific program if a student is struggling at school, like back at school, those kind of things that are helpful for our job as stabilizer. I feel like we are missing those. And I was wondering, or how to connect with, let's say a family is saying, after 8 weeks, I need a case manager who is going to be long term, right? I need an assessment with maybe this kind of evaluation. I need to go to a day treatment. I need to go to these places, right? So those are the resources that I feel will be important for our job as a stabilizer that I missed today in this session.
Yep.
And that's just a feedback.
Yep, absolutely. And I appreciate that. So I have been doing a little bit of, and I want to say how I want to, and I don't know if I mentioned with the community-based array of services. And those are MST, FFT, targeted case management, educational support services, this 4CK group that I'm meeting on. So I've done exactly as you said, I have done and educated them about FRSS and the support we do. So at some point, I also want to line up invitations to organizations that are supporting families in a different capacity for them to come in and share their resources and information and eligibility requirements and how they support, so that not only do we have that as a resource on our resource page on the dashboard, but you also have a little more understanding of how they do and what they do. So that's a good question. And those are some things that I can bring those, presenters to come and talk to us, just as I do, and Samira, you have done, and Kayla too, of and going and Casey going out to those organizations and sharing our resources. We will invite them back, maybe once a month. We would kind of have a meeting where we invite maybe two speakers to share their resources, and then we would create their information or their flyer on our dashboard resource page, so that if you're working with the family and you go, yeah, I need that support, accessible to you. So I appreciate that. I wrote that information down, and then we will set something up together. Anybody else? Any questions? Any comments? I'm gonna stop the recording. If you were gonna say anything negative, I'm gonna stop the recording. Then you can say it freely now. And I won't hold it against you. So no, go ahead.